Hi, my name is Jim Little. I am the CEO of Storage Made Easy, and I'd like to tell you about Storage Made Easy for OpenStack Swift. Storage Made Easy provides an enterprise file share and sync that can be deployed with OpenStack Swift to give OpenStack Swift easily accessible enterprise file share and sync features. What I'd like to do during the course of this short video is to demo this and show you some of the features that are available. Firstly, I'm going to log in. This will take me to my Storage Made Easy OpenStack Swift instance. Storage Made Easy is available as a cloud appliance that can be deployed alongside OpenStack Swift. That cloud appliance is available in Hyper-V, VMware, KVM, and OVF format. It can also be deployed in an OpenStack Compute instance. Once it's deployed, it can be configured and set up to work with different OpenStack Swift instances. In this case, I have two instances deployed. One is an OpenStack Swift instance with a Dutch service provider called CloudVPS, who offer OpenStack. They're using Icehouse. The other one is an instance that we created ourselves here in the SME office, in which we used OpenStack Havana, which we've been using for demos for a little while now. When you create your instances to be able to work within the Storage Made Easy product, it's very, very easy. You literally have to navigate across to your cloud dashboard, and then you can add a provider. As you can see here, Storage Made Easy product supports many different cloud providers, one of which is OpenStack. Once you choose the OpenStack provider, you'll be able to enter your OpenStack authorization credentials, and there's details here depending on whether you're using SWAuth or Keystone, how you should enter it. And then you press continue, and what happens then is the Storage Made Easy product indexes the OpenStack Swift instance and takes the metadata and populates the Storage Made Easy metadatabase. It's in this way we're able to interact with OpenStack Swift. No files are copied across, it's literally just meta information. And once the meta information has been populated, you're returned to the dashboard. And at any time you can repopulate the meta information to keep it up to date if you're accessing OpenStack Swift from different tools and endpoints, or you can work in real-time mode so that every time you access a folder or a file, you always get the latest version. You can also later go back into your OpenStack Swift instance and alter any custom settings that may be applicable to OpenStack. For example, you can change your default container, you can manage new containers or add new ones, and you can enable specific OpenStack Swift features such as dynamic large object support. What we'll do now is to look at some of the team features that you can enable when you're working with OpenStack Swift in the SME product. The first thing to note is that you can work with different authentication systems. So if you're using Active Directory or LDAP, then you can continue to use Active Directory and LDAP for single sign-on, and that would be what you'd use to identify and authorize with the SME system. You can also set up your own users and roles directly from Storage Made Easy and manage them. You can import them, for example, from a CSV or XLS file. You can implement storage quotas, and for each role or member, you can even work with devices, manage, bring your own device, and also work with geo restrictions with regards to IP addresses and enable things like extra security such as two-factor authentication. If you're setting roles, then each role can be pretty granular in terms of what they're enabled to do. And of course, at any point, you can set up new roles. One thing to note is that if you're working with Active Directory or LDAP, the equivalent of roles is groups, for example, in Active Directory. And in that case, once you set your Active Directory up, they would be synchronized with SME, and therefore you'd be using the groups from Active Directory and LDAP rather than the roles from SME, although you can still edit them and assign additional actions. When these roles have been set up, you can add and manage team folders. These team folders can have permissions set against them at a pretty granular level, either at a folder level, at a user level, or at a role level. These permissions are also applied no matter what the device or client. So for example, if it's a web device or it's a Mac device, or it's a Windows device, or it's any mobile device, then the permissions will still ripple through and be applied everywhere. In terms of scale, we have some clients using the interactions between Active Directory and SME with anywhere from 40,000 to 200,000 users. We've got a couple of universities using it with LDAP in the 10 to 50,000 user range. So the access control list part of the product, either with LDAP or Active Directory without, scales very well. Now, before we take a look at the Cloud File Manager and some of the other clients, I'd like to take a look at some other options available within the product. Here we have the admin section for the cloud admin, the person responsible for the OpenStack instance and for the users. And they have some options that they can set at a global level that will affect all users. They're split into sections, as you can see on the left-hand side here. User governance, security, encryption, versioning, user interface, notifications, and branding. What I'm going to do is to quickly go through each of these and give you a flavor for what they provide. The user governance section is mostly concerned with things that can be switched off, such as file sharing options, folder sharing options, link sharing options. They also control the ability to set preset file sharing options. So for example, the admin can force a password required for shared links, or can decide that every shared link that is sent must expire, for example, in 1 day. So you can do those types of policy options that will be set globally across every user, across every device. There are also some options around how a user can deal with private clouds. One of the options in the SME system is to enable a user to be able to add any of their private clouds, such as Google Drive, OneDrive, or something of that nature. If that's being used within the organization in addition to OpenStack, then the admin can give the ability for the user to be able to add those, and they will appear within the unified Cloud File Manager tree. There are some other options around backing up Skype and fax integration that can also be set at the user governance level. Security, again, is pretty self-explanatory. It gives options to the admin to allow, for example, SSL to be forced, to decide which IP addresses that the cloud file server can be used from, whether to force strong passwords, whether to suspend accounts after a number of unsuccessful login attempts, whether to turn globally two-factor authentication on, which authentication system to use if more than one is set up, and also which file events to log, because one of the things that the Storage Made Easy system does is give the ability to log all file events. And I'll talk about this a little more later when we actually look at the auditing section. With regards to encryption, Cloud Admin can set an encryption password that is stored on the cloud appliance that will enable all files that are stored on OpenStack to be encrypted. This is particularly useful if the OpenStack instance is remote on maybe a service provider's infrastructure, and you want to ensure that any sensitive files could only be read by people having the encryption key, which in this case will be stored on the appliance. The encryption that is used is 256-bit AES SHA-1 encryption with a 16-block cipher. The system supports versioning. If versioning is turned on, then any file of the same name that is replaced, the preceding file will become versioned. Version files can be seen in the dashboard using the SME visual versioning feature. The user interface can be designed to be simple or a little more complicated depending on the user set. There are a number of editing options, for example, that are built into the SME system. These can be turned on or turned off depending on how the system is set up to be used. And there are other things like auto translation using Google Translation, which page is shown after login, and those types of things. In terms of notifications, by default, if people are sharing a team folder and people make comments on that folder or share files, then they'll receive a notification. These can be globally controlled, or they can be controlled at a user level. At the moment, we're in a tenant view of an organization. Each organization within the Cloud File Server appliance, and an appliance can handle one or more organizations, can set up their own branding from an email point of view and from a web point of view. If an ISP is running the system, then the branding options are much broader and also can be done at a client level, such as the Mac, Windows, mobile apps client, as well as just the web level. Now I'm just going to quickly go back and show you audit logs. The audit logs, as we talked about earlier, is a place where all file events are logged depending on the audit options that are turned on. Once the options are turned on, the logs are generated. They can be filtered and searched, or they can be exported at a business level as a CSV or as an Excel file. The other thing that we offer from the auditing point of view is that these logs can also be integrated into syslog format so that they can be output into more general BAM dashboards or into things like Splunk. But they do allow an end-to-end way of being able to generate a report and hand it off to a compliance officer and to prove the life cycle of a file, who's had access to it, who shared it. Even if the remote share is not somebody in the organization, the IP address is logged. So it provides a great mechanism for compliance. One other thing I'd like to mention whilst we're on the audit log section is that if a user's been given permission to add a private cloud, any files that are stored on that private cloud whilst he's in the organization will be audited. That's not to say they will be copied, but anything that is used from that personal cloud storage whilst inside the corporate firewall will be audited and also logged here. This gets around some of the problems you can get with bring your own cloud, where you really don't know what's going on from a user perspective behind the corporate firewall. Now I'd like to go back and take another look at the file manager interface. The file manager interface is where most users will spend most of their time. And as you can see, it works either in the full view, like an application mode, or it works in line. Most users are going to use it within a full application mode. It comes with help built in. So if users want to know how to do something, they can hover over the how-to. They just need to click on something and it will tell them. So if they want to know how to copy or move, for example, it'll step them through how to do that. It's a pretty simple, straightforward file manager. It works very much like file trees that Windows are used to. It's hierarchical in nature rather than flat, which is what you tend to see these days from a lot of the file managers. This means that you can navigate hierarchical data sets very quickly up and down the tree. And while you're engaged with one data set, you can still be navigating about and seeing what's going on with the other data set. So it's very useful to be working with lots of files and lots of folders. It's very customizable. The files can be viewed pretty instantly. So when you select a file, you'll get some inline options: view, edit, open in MS Office, comment on it. Perhaps you want to do a quick sharing link, you can do that. Or maybe actually you want to do a more sophisticated sharing link, which involves generating passwords and time expiries. And remember, if the preset policies have been set on these, that's how the link will be generated anyway. So it's a very simple file manager. There are right-click options for more advanced users that provide more detail. In terms of the file manager itself, files can be dragged and dropped directly onto here and they'll upload. We can demonstrate that here. So for example, I'm just adding the SME project template. I drop it onto the file manager and it uploads. Very simple. If I want to select the files, I just hover near the file and I can select them. And then if I want to move them, I can literally just drag and drop them, either between OpenStack instances or between other cloud instances. So there's a lot of easy functionality I can do. It's easy for me to find my way around. I've got a little crumb trail here that lets me navigate up or down without having to go back even to the left-hand pane. The other thing to note is that there's inline search. So once I'm in my instance, I can just click on the search window and I can choose to search. If there's nothing there, I can choose to search in subfolders too. And once I've done that, it may find something, it may not. If I want to do a more advanced search, I can flick over to the advanced search, and this has many more options in terms of how files can be searched. The other thing to notice about search is that the Storage Made Easy product can be integrated with Apache Solr. So not only can the meta info from OpenStack be searched, if the OpenStack cloud is storing documents, or it's storing PDFs, or it's storing meta info about videos or MP3s, for example, then all of that can be searched and would come up when you do a search. Now, as this is our SaaS instance, our online instance that we make available for users, we don't have the Apache Solr integration built in, just the meta search integration. I do, however, have a privately deployed version of our system, available here in which Apache Solr is integrated. In this case, if I flick to the search tab and I want to go away and search for a file, you'll notice that my drop down shows exact phrase and file name. So at the moment this search doesn't look too different to what I showed you before. It's actually gone away in this case to Amazon S3, and it's found anything where the title or metadata shows deposition. What I can do though is ask it to go away and search in the file name and content. Now as soon as I do that, a couple of things happen. One, I can start to add conditions around metadata. So I can search against some text and then combine that with any metadata I've defined on the files. And I can also restrict that within a date range. So now if I rerun that particular search to search in the file name and the content, this time it'll be a little different because it'll come back and it'll find the deposition text within the actual content of the data, which is what I was looking for. So in essence, what I get here is like my own private Google for corporate data. So everything behind the corporate firewall, my OpenStack data, my Amazon S3 data, or any other private or public data I actually have mapped to the appliance becomes indexable and searchable, not only from the web, but also from any of the client tools or mobile tools that I may be using. What I'd like to do now is to take a look at some of the editing and collaboration options that are in the Enterprise File Share and Sync platform for OpenStack. To begin with, I'm just going to take a simple look at PDF annotation. So I'm going to select a PDF and open it in the annotation viewer. Once the file is loaded, it will load any annotations that are available for the file if any have been saved. In our case, there aren't any. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to make some annotations so that we can see how they interact with the document. In the first instance, I'm going to highlight some simple pieces of text, and also I'm going to redact some of the comments. So maybe I'd like to redact who this is about, and maybe I'd like to add a text comment. Other than that, I might be fairly happy that it's approved. Once that's done, I can choose to save my changes, which means that the next time this document is loaded by myself, the annotations will be present. I can also choose to burn out the document. Once the document is burned out, it'll become local, and as you'll see, it'll become a PDF that I can then share with others. There's one thing to note is that on the first page, because we did a redaction, it becomes a true redaction, and this first page then becomes an image, rather than a PDF, so that other people can get to the redacted text, whereas the other pages are still text. So that's PDFs and how you can work with them. This, by the way, works in any HTML5 editor, including mobile, so it'll work on the iPad, it'll work on Android tablets, so that you can edit and manage annotation data. The other type of editing, of course, is Word documents. So if I quickly flick back to my OpenStack instance, I already have some Word documents here. What I can do if I hover over is I can choose to edit one, and because of the SME integration with Zoho Office, then that document will be able to be edited directly within Zoho Office. And actually, if I change something and choose to save, it'll actually be saved back to OpenStack. It's closed. If I want to now, I can just choose to view it. In this case, it's going to go through the Google viewer, and as you can see, it's already changed that and saved it back. So I was able to edit a document directly from my cloud file server on OpenStack in Zoho Office and then save it straight back because of the integration that SME has with Zoho Office. And Zoho Office can be integrated into any of the appliances that we supply for OpenStack through the use of an API key. Zoho Office integration isn't the only option for editing files through the cloud file server. We also integrate directly with MS Office on the desktop if it exists via this little plugin. If you click on that, it'll ask me if I want to open the file locally in my copy of Word on my desktop, In my case, I'm on a Mac, but it also works on Windows. I'm not going to do it this time to go through the same process, but it would just open the document in Word, and then you could edit it and save it, and it would save it back again to the OpenStack instance. And that works pretty well. There are other things you can do with regards to documents. If you wanted to, you could create a quick text document, my text document, maybe add a tag, choose to edit after creation. Once that's done, you'll have basically a text window that allows you to cut and paste or just to edit text. We can see that our cloud is OpenStack. This supports Markdown and a whole heap of other types of templating language, and it's very easy to use. And it literally will just create a text file and save it back to OpenStack. On either of these, of course, I can collaborate through the use of comments. So if I wanted to go in and comment on this file, I can actually go to the full comments and file view, and I get to know everything about the file. I get a little preview of the file, and if this is a shared team folder, then other users who are looking at this file are aware of me, and actually we can interact with each other over the comments like a type of instant messenger, except that you can export the comments then as a HTML file, and that data, that messaging backwards and forwards, becomes part of the corporate repository again. So that's a great way to be able to interact with other users on documents. The other thing you can do in terms of file creation is, of course, create Word and Excel documents and then choose to edit them straight away through the integration with Zoho like I've just shown you. But we can also have other types of file. Often in a corporate setting or a project setting, you often refer to site links. I'm going to put a very simple site link, in this case the BBC. And I'm going to create it. Once it's created, it becomes another document within my repository. If I double click on it, it takes me straight to the BBC homepage. But the interesting thing about it is, again, I can collaborate against it. And of course, every time I make a comment against the link, then users who are subscribed to any shared folders will get the comment. And again, all of those comments can be exported and are searchable and go back into the corporate repository. So it really is a very good way to be able to collaborate against shared links. What I'd like to do now is to take a look at some of the API access mechanisms into the SME product and thereby into OpenStack Swift. One of the features of the SME product is that it functions also as a cloud gateway. And one of the things it brings to the table there is it provides different mechanisms of protocol access using something we call protocol adapters. Now what I've done is I've set up some of these protocol adapters for our OpenStack instance that we've been using. You'll see that I have one for WebDAV, one for FTP, one for an Amazon S3 compatible API, and one for Sftp. And if I, for example, use the FTP protocol adapter, then what it will do is it will connect to the instance over FTP. And as you can see, we can see exactly the same view that we have in our pane over here in terms of the files that are accessible to us. So if I have any products, hardware, anything that can output to FTP, I'm able to add that to my OpenStack instance direct using this FTP protocol adapter. The same for S3. If a company's invested in Amazon S3 API and wants to be able to have S3 compatibility for their workloads, then they can use the OpenStack instance using our Amazon S3 compatible API. Again, you see exactly the same view that you would see as if you were using the instance direct. And of course, the great benefit about using these protocol adapters is that everything that you do is audited and logged, as we looked at earlier. The same works again for Sftp. If I want Sftp access, then again, I get the same view. And the beauty of something like Sftp is that it can be done from the terminal. And we already work with some companies, for example, that only have terminal access. And this is a great way to be able to access something like OpenStack Swift directly from the terminal. Now what I'd like to do is take a look at some of the SME desktop clients. Currently I'm on a Mac. What I can do is use some of the SME integration to work directly with my OpenStack instance from the desktop. The first thing I'm going to do is going to start the cloud drive. The cloud drive provides a native desktop interface to be able to work with your OpenStack files, or indeed any other cloud files, directly from your Mac. These drives also exist on Windows and Linux. As you can see, I've opened up my cloud drive. Again, I get the same view as I would get if I was working direct on the instance through the web. And what I can do is I can access these on demand because they're a remote view on data. So for example, if I want to use the Mac preview, what will happen is the file will be downloaded and I'll see it, and it will be cached until a new file is available, which would then also be cached. And I can do that with any file. I can drag and drop files here. I can work with it as if it was a native drive. The SME tools also provide for online offline access and can be configured from the system preferences. Once logged in, we could set up automatic sync and map folders from our OpenStack instance directly to our local instance, and these will then forever be kept in sync. This is a great way to be able to work with, a Dropbox type configuration. SME also integrates directly into the Mac mail environment, so that when you create a new email, you're able to access your OpenStack files directly. As you can see here, this is our OpenStack instance, and if we were to drill down, we can choose to securely share a file link. We can set an expiry or password, and of course, if the preset policies have been set, these would automatically be filled in. And once done, we can choose to share it, and it appears in the email. This also works for uploading files directly to OpenStack and then sharing short links. The advantage of this is you get full access to all of the audit information with regards to how the links are shared and who they've been shared with, and you have that level of control. The Mac Tools also features search integration directly from the Mac menu bar. This allows to search for documents directly on the OpenStack cloud, either by the meta information or by the meta information plus the index content of the document if Solr search integration has been enabled on the SME appliance. This is very easy to work with. Once you find the document you want, you can double click the download, or indeed you can decide just to easily create a shared link. It's simple integration and it's available directly on the menu bar from the Mac. The same type of tool options exist in Windows. So I'll quickly switch to a VM instance which shows Windows running with the Storage Made Easy tools. Here we've got a Windows 7 instance, although the tools work on Windows 7 and Windows 8. And if I want to access the cloud drive, similar to what I did on the Mac, I can literally just go to my Explorer and start to drill down. And again, this functions just like a drive. On the Windows version, there are slightly more options in terms of how the drive can be configured, including the refresh timeout and what you want to do with a cache file. Also, there's the similar option of a Dropbox-like folder sync, in which you can pair folders from your local machine to folders that appear on the OpenStack instance. This is very intuitive and easy to do, and you can choose various configuration options for how the sync will occur. So these configuration options are a little more advanced than what you will get on Dropbox. They don't just include full sync, they also enable sync up, sync down, and things like clone up and clone down. So the same types of tools and apps that you get on the Mac, you also get on Windows to be able to work with your remote cloud files and OpenStack instance. Lastly, I'd like to show you one of the SME mobile clients. I'll show you the iPad client, but Storage Made Easy has dedicated clients for iPad, iPhone, Android phone, Android tablet, BlackBerry, and also for Windows Phone. So if I go over to my Air server, you'll see my iPad. I'm going to log into the same OpenStack instance. As soon as I log in, I'll be able to access my cloud files. We see the same view as we see obviously on the left. I get the ability to access the files exactly the same way. Clicking on a file gives me some options. I can choose to do all the things I can on either the desktop tools or the web interface. And I get some options also at the folder level, quite a few around what I'd like to do. I can also sort the files to make it easy to get access. And across the top, you'll see that I have a crumb trail, just like I did on the website, where I can click in and quickly navigate backwards and forwards. It's very functional. It also supports full offline, so that you can set up folders to sync and have them available when the device is not active. You also get access to all your cloud providers to be able to resync, for example, your OpenStack meta info if that's what you choose to do. If you're the cloud admin, you'll get access to some extra features around dealing with permissions on shared folders. So we can actually edit the folder permissions for this folder from the participants of the OpenStack cloud. It also comes fully enabled with search. Again, if Apache Solr integration is enabled, then this will work right across the Solr instance and show data within the content of the document as well as just the meta information. Again, it's pretty quick because all the data is indexed. It doesn't have to go all the way back to OpenStack to pull it down. Files can be edited in different apps now using the document picker built into iOS. And the app is only one way of being able to access Storage Made Easy, because actually the website works very well on the iPad. It's touch optimized so that you can actually log in and you can use the Cloud File Manager that we see here on the desktop directly from the iPad. And it's got touch optimized controls. It's easy to select and choose actions with files. And you can use this pretty much transparently. The difference between this, of course, and the iPad app or the iOS app is that you can do quite a lot of configuration for offline use, whereas with a website, of course, you have to be online. I hope that you've enjoyed the demonstration of the enterprise file share and sync for OpenStack Swift by Storage Made Easy. You can find out more at worldwideweb.storagemadeeasy.com and selecting the OpenStack option. And if you want a fuller demo or want to ask questions, please don't hesitate to contact our sales team. Thanks.